What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Just a few weeks ago, I took some massive shots at huge games in Los Angeles, California, losing $52,000 on the Friday game at Hustler Casino Live. Well, I'm back here in Florida now to try to get my money back. I'm at Harrahs, Pompano Beach, playing a private 5-10-25 game. Let's go. I raise pocket jacks to $50 from early position. I get one caller from later position and go heads up to a 10-3-5 rainbow board. I bet out $75 and my opponent calls. Turn card's a queen of clubs, bringing in a flush draw. Could continue to bet given the fact that I don't think he has many queen X holdings in his range once he calls on the flop. Could have queen 10, possibly ace queen or king queen that floated. I like to check for a little bit of pot control. And my opponent checks back. Good river card pairing the board. I'm going to try to squeak out a little bit of value here from a 10x hand or a pocket pair that's unbelieving. I bet out $150. My opponent on the button doesn't think for too long and folds, and we win around $150 worth of profit in this hand. So we're climbing our way back. $52,000 loss. Now we're only down $51,850. I get into a tough spot up next. I'm interested to see what you guys would do in this situation. 7-8 of hearts I raise to 50, get a call from the small blind and big blind, three ways to 8-7-3, two clubs, top two pair for me. I bet out $100 here. Probably could go almost pot-sized bet. I get a call from the small blind and big blind fold. So now we're heads up to the 9 on the turn. Not my favorite card. Small blind checks. This brings in some straights, brings in better two pairs than mine, brings in pocket nines for a set, but I think my hand is just too strong to check back, so I bet out $200, and the small blind comes along with a call again. Now there's a flush draw on board, there's a straight draw, it's a pretty connected board, and the river card is a king. What happens next is very surprising to me. The small blind leads out for a $600 bet into me on this king on the river. Really interesting spot. I mean, we had top two pair on the flop, and now it is downgraded to not even close to top two pair. Straights beat us, sets beat us, but what kind of hands is he representing here when he check calls flop, check calls turn, and then leads out on this river? Could he have a hand like king 10 of clubs, something like king queen of clubs that he's trying to blocker bet? I don't know. It seems like a hand he would just want to check call with instead of lead out with. Now, I do have a decent amount of history with this opponent, been playing with him for over a year. He's very loose pre-flop, plays a lot of hands pre-flop, gets in there, but once the flop, turn, and river comes out, he doesn't really get too out of line. He's pretty solid, so I don't think he's bluffing here. But is he ever betting a hand that we're beating? And I'm not really sure if he is. On the other hand, two pair is a very strong hand. If he did have a set on the flop, I think he would check raise flop or at least check raise turn. If he had turned a straight, I feel like he would definitely check raise on the turn. I don't think he's playing a straight or a set like this. I don't think he's playing a king X of clubs hand like this. So I just don't see too many hands we're losing to on this run out given this action. But before I reveal the results, I want you guys to pause the video and think to yourself, what would you do in this situation facing a $600 lead? And if you want to, put your answers down in the comment section below. I decided to use my one-time show button and make a hero fold with 7-8, two pair, and he shows king 7 for a better two pair. Wow, sick hand. We had him crushed on the flop, crushed on the turn, and then he got there on the river with a better two pair. We all take a dinner break and come back, which means the mandatory straddle is on. 5-10-25. There's a limp for 25. Ace king offsuit in the hijack for me. I raised a 125. Small blind, an aggressive player, re-raises me to $475. He started the hand with around $5,000 or $6,000. I have roughly $3,000 in my stack. I think hijack versus small blind versus an aggressive player. In position, we went to 4-bet ace-king offsuit a decent amount of the time, just trying to get it all in here, around 150 big blinds deep. So that's what I do. I make it $1,000 to go back over to the small blind, calling all raises that he may do if it comes to that. My opponent takes around 20 to 30 seconds to think and then eventually puts in the call. Once he just calls here out of position versus my 4-bet, I don't think he ever has aces or kings or even queens. I think a lot of the time he's going to have pocket 10s, pocket jacks, ace queen suited, ace king. So when the flop comes out 4-7-8 and he checks over to me, I have a decision to make. On the 4-7-8 board in a 4-bet pot, is he ever going to fold an overpair here? I don't know. I mean, probably could just check given this board, but I decided to go for it. I'm all in. $2,000 all in for me into a $2,000 pot. We're obviously hoping we don't get snap called by a slow played aces or kings, and once that doesn't happen, now I think a lot of the time he's got ace king himself or something like tens or jacks. I mean, this is a little bit unbalanced, I will admit. If I did have a hand like aces or kings, I would bet small on this board, bet small on the turn, and look to shove the river. So given the fact that I am shoving all in here on the flop is definitely unbalanced because I would not be doing this with top tier hands like aces and kings. However, he doesn't know that I'm unbalanced. Also, I have a lot of history with this opponent dating back to 2018 and 2019 when I used to take shots at 2-5 in a casino in Miami. And when I was taking shots at 2-5 4 or 5 years ago, I was a very tight player. I never got out of line. I never made big bluffs. I always had the nuts and I always played really strong hands. And I think he still somewhat has that perception of me. I think he still thinks that I'm a more nitty, more tighter, more conservative player. So I think this could be used to my advantage. And it is. When he uses his one-time show button, I show ace king, and he says he folded pocket jacks. He seemed pretty upset. I mean, it is a flip. If we were all in, we would have ran it twice. Maybe we would have chopped. But either way, I'll take that as a win. Getting my opponent to fold jacks in a 4-bet pot on an 8-high board with ace high seems good to me. Speaking of nit, I think it's kind of funny how my perception online has changed over the years. When I first started making poker content in early 2021, I was perceived to be a good 5-10 player, someone who was good at the game, knew what they were doing. I was posting a lot of winning videos and a lot of videos of me not making many mistakes. So I felt like my perception to people was very positive. And then I moved to Texas and started playing live streams. And on those live streams, I was making mistakes. I was making tight folds, bad folds. I was playing games that were too big for me. And I just wasn't playing my best poker. And that's when people started calling me a nit. I got the nickname Nit O Poker, tightest player at the table, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And since that time in 2021, I kind of tried to make it a point that I wouldn't be nitty, that I'd be good for the game, that I would get in there and bluff and play a lot of hands. And I think I took it a little bit overboard in 2023 and early 2024, where I just became too loose. I became a bad reg, calling too many hands, bluffing too much, getting way out of line too often. And now I'm trying to hone that back in a little bit. I don't want to be a nit, but I also don't want to be a loose, aggressive punter who's just blasting off their entire stack. I'm trying to be a good, solid reg. I mean, I'm trying my best. As you guys know, poker's a super tough game. Very fine line between looking like an idiot and looking like a genius. Back to the action, pocket jacks. I raised a 200 over 2 limp calls. Cutoff player calls 200, big blind player calls 200, and straddle player re-raises me to $675. Under the gun player who just called now calls 675. I think there's just one option here with pocket jacks, and that is all in. Look, I don't think the cutoff player has me beat. I don't think the big blind player has me beat. And I definitely don't think the under the gun limper who just called 675 has me beat. So I'm going to go all in. My hand's too strong to just call and go multi-way. There's way too much dead money in the middle. The cutoff player thinks for a while and folds. Big blind player folds. And the straddle player folds, but the limper makes the call. Well, that was very unexpected. Just like that, playing almost a $10,000 pot with pocket jacks. I've got no idea if I'm ahead or behind, but the first board comes out 10 high. Looks pretty safe. Run out has no overcards to my pair. I like that flop. I like that turn. I like that river. Let's see what the second board brings. Well, one overcard to my pair. I announce that I have got pocket jacks and show, and my opponent shows pocket tens. Oh my God. He hit a set on the first board and just pocket tens on the second board. And we're going to chop up this massive $9,000 pot. Obviously pretty frustrating to get it all in pocket jacks versus pocket tens, and chop is a little bit annoying. I was probably an 80% plus favorite to win a massive pot. But I will say there is a little bit of run good in this situation. I've decided that if I'm going to play any pot less than 10,000, I'm just going to run it one time. So if I was playing this pot anywhere else, I would run it once. But at this game, everybody runs it twice. So I ran it twice at this game. If I would have ran it once, I would have got beat and lost over $4,000. So I guess I came away with a win to chop this one up. Next up, queen 9 of hearts, I raise to $100. In the cutoff, I get 4 callers going 5 ways, looking for a good flop, and I feel like we somewhat get it with a 9-7-4 2 spades. We've got top pair, good kicker, on a board that we shouldn't be losing very often. I think a lot of my opponents would either re-raise or raise themselves with bigger overpairs than the 9. So when it checks to me, I feel pretty confident betting here. I make it $300. I get 1 call from the small blind, and we go heads up to the deuce of diamonds on the turn. He checks to me for a second time. I bet out $700, trying to get value from straight draws, flush draws, weaker 9x hands, or unbelieving pocket pairs. And he does call, so now I'm a little bit worried that maybe he's got a better 9 than me or something like pocket 10s. So when the final card comes out, a 7 pairing the board, he checks, I check back, and we win up against pocket 8s.
Queen 9.
Queen 9.
Get out of your comfort zone.
I mean, you should see the hands I'm getting. I'm getting ace-jack suited, 10-9 suited. I just got to keep letting them go. Every poker game loves a little sarcastic troll action at the table, am I right? All right, last interesting hand of the night. I'm in the cutoff, raised to $100. The big blind player re-raises me to $400. This is the same player who called my 4-bet when I had ace-king, when I jammed all in on an 8-high board and he folded pocket jacks. He seems to be a little bit steamed up. Things haven't been going his way this session, so I think I could go in between a 4-bet and just calling. With ace-queen offsuit, I think 4-betting is better a lot of the time, but against this player, we're pretty deep stacked. I think calling in position is fine, so that's what I decide to do. Over $800 in the middle, heads up, 3-bet pot to a queen 8-4 all-club board. With the queen out there, giving me top pair, top kicker, it's great if he has a hand like pocket jacks or pocket 10s or ace-king. It's not great if he has a hand like aces, kings, a flop flush, or a set. He bets out $375 on this flop, 3-bet pot, in position versus this player. Only one option, which is to just call, keep all of his bluffs in there, and also under-rep my hand as well. Turn card pairs the board, another 8, and I feel like a lot of the time he's going to check to me, or he's going to bet big. And he does decide to bet big. He makes it $800 to go. Now it's starting to get a little bit sketchy. If he had jacks or 10s that were beating, he would never be betting this turn for this sizing. So when he bets this sizing, he's saying he's got aces, he's got kings, he's got ace-queen, he's got flushes, he's got sets, and he can have some bluffs as well. Hands like ace of clubs, king of clubs, or just random airball bluffs like jack 10 of hearts or 9-10 of spades or something like that. My hand's too strong to fold, but I definitely am going to tread cautiously. I make the call for $800. River card's a 2. Now he checks over to me, and I have to contemplate in my head, should I bet this river or should I play it safe and check it back? I check.
King 9.
I make a somewhat tight conservative check back with ace-queen. My opponent announces you're good, means he's bluffing, and we end up taking down this pot. I decided to check back thinking that he has a lot of bluffs, and those bluffs cannot call. Don't think he really has 10s or jacks, and the small percentage of the time that he's checking with aces and kings, I don't know, I just didn't think a bet was necessary. But looking back, I do think I should be betting ace-queen here because he could have a hand like queen 10 suited, queen jack suited, and king queen suited. That would call a bet that he would want to check on the river. Either way, we take down this pot and end up profiting a nice $2,000+ in this game. End up racking up my chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out.